way back to the early days of 75 and the black space. Chillin' with my homeboy Muscle Man Ron and the Boogie Down Bronx BKA P-Lon. It was a privilege for people to see Bam Bada rockin' hard at 123 on a Friday night. The boys would come running to hear big beats that was shocking and stunning. In the hill, not a thing was chill. Sound masters on the loose and acting ill. Uptown, every weekend rock, either 131 or around that block, but anywhere uptown, you always heard the sound. Hip hop, funky beats, MCs getting down. The truth I swear, admit and declare, the Bronx was the first. I know I was there. The beats were dope. The sound was on. By the way, saying peace to my brother Mel.
Hip-hop began in the 70s in what was still known as the Boogie Down Bronx. The South Bronx was later being burned down and forcing families out of their homes.
Where do you think hip-hop began?
To my knowledge, hip-hop began in the Bronx, which makes it an honor to be an educator here in the Bronx. Why hip-hop began? Well, hip-hop was started by young people. Young people were oppressed and disenfranchised in their community.
As gangs emerged and poverty grew more and more, youth became frustrated by the conditions they were being forced to live in. Not having access to the studios to record their music, the burnt-out abandoned buildings became the new chill spot.
I think that hip-hop has a unique ability to create something out of nothing. You know, it started in the Bronx where people were being burnt out of their houses. They didn't have much, but they had their creativity, they had their mind, they had their humanity. And out of that creativity and out of that humanity, hip-hop was born.
For many, this became the place where the teenagers began to make their own music. Block parties became a form of entertainment for urban youth.
The last art form to be created on American soil, and probably won't be any after it.
Money was being taken out of schools, arts programs were being cut, and young people came together to create sort of a new sound and a new way of expression.
Well, I think hip-hop is one of the last art forms to truly be the voice of the people. Hip-hop is supposed to speak on the social narrative, on what's going on in our communities, in our families, what's going on in our relationships. And hip-hop is one of the few art forms that addresses all of that.
And all of a sudden, you know, people started, dancing on cardboard boxes in the street. People started doing graffiti on the train so that the whole city can know who they were. People started DJing and scratching and cutting and blending disco beats. And then people started, taking the mic and MCing.
What attracted hip-hop, the beats or the words?
Good question. I would probably say the lyrics, but I would probably be speaking because the beat is usually the first thing you hear. But I grew up during the golden age of hip hop, and lyrics mattered tremendously. So, the first rap album I bought and listened to constantly was an album called Criminal Minded by Boogie Down Production, and the artist was KRS-One.
What artist had a big impact on you?
I used to love Public Enemy. I used to love, what they had to offer, and again, just the consciousness, of that music. Miss Melody. I mean, people that had something to say. I always look for people that had something to say. Now there was other hip hop that was, you could just party to and dance to, and that was great too. It really was. But people that really portrayed those kind of messages that uplifted the community and uplifted the young people in the community, that was what I tended to gravitate to.
I remember my first album that I got was a Christmas present, and it was Run DMC. I played that song over and over again, and being from Queens, they were like the hottest group at the time. So when I used to go to school in the mornings, they would be playing their songs on we used to have these things called big boom boxes, and they would be blasting Run DMC. And so that's when I really fell in love with hip hop.
Well, there's a few different artists for different reasons. My favorite MC is Rakim Allah. I came out at a time where it was right after Treacherous 3 and The Fearless 4+1, and a lot of those early hip-hop groups, and a lot of those groups kind of stemmed from doo-wop, which was kind of like a singing style, and then hip-hop took it to a next level with taking a little doo-wop and then adding this little vocal, almost like speaking, but with rhythm.
So my favorite rapper would have to be Tupac. He will continue to be my favorite rapper. I just loved what he said. and he expressed himself, and it was unashamed. He just let it all loose.
A young man from the Bronx began DJing at local parties, who was known as DJ Kool Herc. His style of DJing was new, where he extended the middle of the record of the break of a popular disco or funk song. Around 1974, another DJ and a graffiti artist named Fab Five Freddy teamed up. The DJ eventually categorized the components of hip-hop, which were DJing, b-boys, and b-girls, breakers or dancers. The graffiti artists, ballmen, and MC. The b-boys and b-girls would dance during the long breaks in music.
Who's Kool Herc?
Kool Herc is literally the godfather of hip hop. I would say why Herc is important is because hip hop came from Jamaica, and Jamaica was really like they used to have these clashes, these sound clashes, where they used to just play music in the street. So Herc kind of took that what was happening in Jamaica and brought it here. But I think what made Herc unique is that he really used to go into different genres of music. So you might hear 2 James Brown records, and then you might hear 2 Kraftwerk records back to back.
Could you tell me about what's on your wall?
My Mount Rushmore of hip hop. These are the artists that had the most influence over me growing up. So from left to right, we have Ice Cube, founding member of NWA, one of the lead writers and lead poets in that group. He eventually broke away and created what I think is one of the greatest hip-hop albums of all time, America's Most Wanted. Next to him, we have Rakim from Eric B. and Rakim, who, in my opinion, is the greatest MC poet to ever touch a mic. Next to him, we have KRS-One, also known as The Teacher. Great impact on me. Next to him, we have Tupac Shakur, followed by Jay-Z, followed by Nas. And then the symbolism you see up there, we have the Public Enemy symbol representing Chuck D, as well as the Wu-Tang symbol representing the amazing group from Staten Island, New York.
What made you help kids understand more about hip hop?
Oh, well, I want to, it's interesting that you asked that question. I was listening to the hip hop that you guys listen to, and I was thinking about the hip hop that I grew up on, and I felt like it would be a great bridge to have a conversation about my hip hop versus your hip hop, and and I saw that the same way hip hop impacted me. Like I would like think at our time we would be like, oh, Rakim's the best, or Cool G Rap, or Big Daddy Kane, and we would have these arguments. I saw the same arguments happening with your generation. So I felt like it's important for me to be able to give, especially the students here in New York, the foundation of hip hop, to understand where hip hop came from. And then they could look at their favorite rap artists through a different eye.
Yeah, like sometimes I could relate to the song about things that go on.
Who do you relate to? Like in terms of artists?
Like Logic, like the things that go on, if you know Logic. XXX Tentacion, his depression and stuff like that.
Worst thing comes to worst, I die a tragic death or something, and I'm not able to see out my dreams. I at least want to know that the kids perceived my message and were able to make something of themselves and able to take my message and use it and turn it into something positive, and to at least have a good life. I at least, if I'm gonna die or ever be a sacrifice, I want to make sure that my life made at least 5 million kids happy, or they found some sort of answers or resolve in my life.
Who had the biggest impact on you?
Which artist had the biggest impact on me? Looking at my life now, I would probably say Chuck D. But at the time, I didn't really know it. At the time, my favorite MC and artist was Rakim, from Eric B. and Rakim. But when I look at how my life turned out, being a school principal, being someone who's into social action, social justice, that's what Public Enemy's music was all about. So I would probably have to say Public Enemy.
I think the thing with today's youth is that there's a lot of problems in Black America because there's that communication gap between the older and the young, and there's an educational gap between the old and the young. There's things that the older know and should say that the younger should know.
So hip hop music, your hip hop, does it help you in any way? And if so, how?
Yeah, it does really affect me, the beats and the lyrics, because like I play sports, so like it gets me in the moving mood to like move around and run around, and it gives me energy.
How did hip hop affect you?
How did it affect me? Well, like I said, so some of the old school music, right? It definitely influenced the way that I thought about the world, because I didn't have too many examples to look to. So the music, there was a lot of messages in the music. There was a lot of current events in the music, a lot of strength in the music.
You actually use hip hop to build your confidence, and you used hip hop to
lower my anger.
To lower your anger. So when you who's your favorite? Like, give me an artist that you like.
I don't know my favorite artist, but I know their songs.
Well, give me a song that you like.
One is Demons and one is Brothers.
Okay. And when these songs came on, what was it about the song that would make your anger go down?
The Demon was about like, I turned into my own. It was like, do not oppress your personality that much. Do not give so much anger and start problems. And Brother just made me think of my cousin, my cousin named Cadero, and my great grandfather.
Why?
Because it was like how people die, but they're still in your heart, and they're like trying to like consume the anger, like trying to like take it down a notch.
I grew up in Jamaica, Queens, in the height of the 80s, in the height of the crack epidemic era. So unfortunately, I saw my friends get murdered. I saw people in my neighborhood who I once respected get addicted to crack cocaine, and those things impacted me deeply. And hip hop for me was like an escape. It was my therapy. You know, I grew up, I rapped about my experiences. I rapped about my friends who I had lost, and I rapped about the anxiety and the fear of growing up in an environment where you didn't know whether or not if you walked down the block, you might end up getting shot just by going to the store. So for me, hip hop was an escape. It was a way for me to channel some of my energy and to kind of like deal with the real trauma of losing your good friends and some family members at the age of 13 and 14 years old.
As growing up, things that like I had to go through and deal with, it got me more angry every day thinking about it. And then sometimes I knew like I couldn't stop it or do nothing about it, so it got me more angry, and I just like would be bad or just destroy things because not knowing how to deal with my anger. And like I realized like when I'm putting on music or something, I don't think about the anger. I'll try to sing the music or listen to the beat and things like that.
I know that you make beat making, but like what made you get into that?
Another great question. Around my sophomore year in high school, I hurt my knee playing basketball. I had dreams and desires, just like all of us, to be in the NBA. And I actually got hurt by working out too much. I was doing far too much weight for my knees and kind of like blasted out my knees working out. So that was my sophomore year. By the end of my sophomore year, I bought a beat making machine, the Ensoniq 16 Plus, and which is ironically a machine that a lot of other hip-hop producers use and created some classic music, like Kanye uses it, RZA uses it. It was unique because it was a sampling keyboard that you could sample and play at the same time. So after I hurt my knee my sophomore year, I was making beats by my junior year. So, you know, one door closes, another one opens.
I grew up with a single mother. My father wasn't around that much. He was around a little bit, but not that much. My mother worked in the post office. I had 2 older sisters and 1 younger sister. And I was in the street playing all the time. I was a street kid. I was outside a lot, playing a lot. That's pretty much all I did was play games in the street. As I got older and the crack cocaine epidemic came to the community, the streets became more violent and more aggressive. And people started fighting each other. People started killing each other. And this was about 91, 92. And at that time, I decided to leave New York. And I went to go live in New Jersey with my father, where I finished high school.
I remember, loving Dougie Fresh. I remember, The Show. I remember MC Light. I mean, these were people that taught me. These were people that, you know, reflected something that was new at that particular time, and something that was different, and something that represented me as a woman of color, and certainly as a young person of color. Because, I mean, there were a lot of people, a lot of other influences, but they spoke our language. They spoke to our community.
How'd you get started into the Hip Hop Museum?
So the Universal Hip Hop Museum is there's going to be a museum dedicated to hip hop, and it's going to be in the Bronx, right here, where at Bronx Point, and they chose Bronx because that's where hip hop began. Years ago, when I was the principal of this school out in Queens, I met Curtis Blow. Curtis Blow was one of the pioneers and legends of hip hop, and we developed a relationship and continued that relationship a couple of years, right? And he came to me about 2 years ago and told me about how they're going to be starting this Universal Hip Hop Museum. He knew that I was a former principal. He knew that I was an educator, and they wanted someone to help write the curriculum for the museum. And what I mean by curriculum is I was going to write like what students were expected to learn when they went to the museum, and what they were going to do when they got back from the museum. And so this project here at CASA Middle School is a pilot project. It's in partnership with the Universal Hip Hop Museum, myself, and this school.
I know Dr. Shango Blake. He's former principal of New York City Schools, actually the nation's hip hop principal. We have a partnership with the Universal Hip Hop Museum, where we're going to begin to incorporate all aspects of hip hop culture into the school setting. So there were young men in my school, young men like yourself, your brother, and others, who I wanted to be a part of this particular initiative. So, you know, I signed an agreement and came to a partnership with Dr. Blake and the Universal Hip Hop Museum.
And kind of work out the kinks in terms of developing a curriculum that all schools around the country, when they come to the museum, they will know exactly what they're looking at, and they'll know exactly what to do when they get back in terms of like post museum trips assignments. And so that's how I got involved. I'm excited about the project, and I think it's going to be a beautiful thing for the Bronx.
I've learned that like if you really put your mind to something, you can do it.
I've learned that like projects have to be with teamwork. Like you have to work together to finish things.
Like the way it all started.
Give me an example.
Like how you said when you taught us about how the buildings used to be burned down and people got run out their homes and things like that. I didn't know that that's how it started.
I would like to thank them because, like, if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be doing any of this, and we wouldn't learn about hip-hop or anything.
What are y'all doing with this hip-hop thing?
We're just kids that, like, because at first it started off as a class, but then it became as a, like, group project, and we're just trying to do something like better with our lives instead of getting in trouble.
I am co-director, and I'm helping this whole project come together and finish it. I really want to know like how they grew up or whatever, that like if we know what they're going through their life, like it could affect the whole community, and we can help them and become united. And
doing bad stuff and like starting like problems, and like when like this if this takes us somewhere, we can be we may consider doing this when we grow up, or we could just be popular kids that started this.
Yeah, you're leaving a legacy, and I just want to congratulate you guys. You guys are doing a phenomenal job. You're doing a great job as a director, producer, and we're interested in seeing more about how hip-hop influences your lives. So thank you.
You're welcome.
I would love to thank him for bringing this to the school, because like same thing, if we didn't have him in the school, we might not be able to learn all of this about hip-hop.
Can you tell me what made you become a principal?
I was a teacher first, and I love being a teacher. I it's one of those professions where you come to work inspired every day, getting to work with young people and transform their lives. But I wanted to have a bigger impact. I wanted to impact more than just my classroom. I wanted to impact an entire school and an entire community. So that's why I became a principal. That's why I tried to become a principal. It's not easy. Everybody doesn't get a chance to do it. But I wrote a proposal, an idea for a new school, and I was able to open up my own school in 2009.
The graffiti was formed of artistic expression where the artist was expressing all of his frustration felt by the youth in urban communities. Soon, another DJ known as Grandmaster Flash developed a new DJing technique by mixing two different songs together. This technique was picked up by every hip-hop DJ that came after him. As hip-hop grew, many of the DJs, MCs, breakers were going to clubs around New York City playing for large crowds. Eventually, MCs developed rapping, which they chanted to an instrumental beat. The artist was now expressed socially conscious issues that through dance, rap, and or graffiti. Unfortunately, many people saw hip-hop as something in the ghetto, specifically for African American youth. However, hip-hop spread like wildfire amongst all the other cultures, particularly by the Latino communities around the city. It was never imagined that it will one day be a billion-dollar industry. A question the CASA MS Wayback Crew has for you: what is your hip-hop story?
Yeah, that was good. Well, I said, I think it should be of.
With a pen, you can change it. Okay. So you want read what you want.
Yeah.
Director's directing, boy. Catch that on camera, Dr.
I'm
Blake.
saying the director is on point
The
today.
director's on point, man.
The
middle of the record.
Yeah, but I don't think all should be that. I think it should be of.
Change the words. Change the words.
We'll find out.
Of.
He's taking this.